start the intro. Hello, everyone. This is Sergio Marrero, and we're here with our next guest and RBL1 Live, Tricia Martinez, who's the Managing Director of Techstars Industries of the Future Accelerator. Thanks for joining us tonight, Tricia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to talk Techstars, startups, entrepreneurship, investing, all of it.
Yeah, so for those that don't know Tricia, she has quite a background. So not only was she a White House Presidential Innovation Fellow, she graduated from DePaul University and also the University of Chicago, where she got her master's in public policy at University of Chicago. And she is formerly the founder and CEO of Walla, a blockchain startup that was based out of South Africa before she went to the Presidential Innovation Fellowship, and now is Managing Director at Techstars Industries of the Future. So for those that don't know, could you share a little bit about the Techstars Accelerator, and then also what is Techstars Accelerator Industries of the Future? What does that mean?
Yeah, awesome. So Techstars is a global venture fund, and we invest in super early stage tech businesses through an acceleration model. So think of a 3-month program where we are wrapping you with all the resources you need to be a successful business. So introductions to customers, executives, top mentors, and industry experts, taking you through programming and workshops. So what is the value proposition? How do I build a supply chain? What is my product offering, and how do I differentiate in the market? What is a cap table, and how do I pitch to an investor and manage my first seed round? And then at the end of the program, we have demo day, where we bring together a bunch of customers for you, and that could be industry, government, consumers, as well as a room full of investors. So you go out, you pitch, you tell the world what you've done, who you are, and what your big vision is. And Techstars in general, we like to invest in businesses that want to change the world. I'm actually an alum of Techstars, which is why I wanted to come back. So with my company, Walla, I went through the Barclays Techstars London program. So being a founder, I knew in the fintech and blockchain space, I wanted to understand how banks operated and what happened on the inside. So going through the Techstars program in partnership with Barclays Bank gave me access to all the executives that I needed to understand, how to sell to them and launch a proof of concept. But for my program, Industries of the Future, I'm truly, truly ecstatic because it's the first mainly deep tech focused program. So normally Techstars focuses on software enabled, a lot of B2C solutions, SaaS, B2B. But this is deep tech. So we're talking hardware and software, novel technologies that can truly disrupt industries. So I'm working with a lot of scientists who have been spending their entire careers in a lab, inventing novel technologies, things from quantum computing, AI, advanced manufacturing and robotics, IoT, 5G. This program is in partnership with Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is the largest national lab in the country. It's a Department of Energy lab. It's where the atomic bomb was invented. So that's crazy, that piece alone. Tennessee Valley Authority, which is the largest public utilities company in the country, they cover about 8 states, providing electricity to them, as well as the University of Tennessee, which is one of the biggest research institutions in the country. So those 3 organizations all work with and operate in Knoxville, Tennessee. So many of you might be like, what is Knoxville? Where is this? It's not Nashville. But while I was at, and we can jump into all this, but while I was at the Department of Energy as a Presidential Innovation Fellow, I worked closely with Oak Ridge National Lab. And as a Chicagoan, someone who was not from Tennessee, I was very surprised to hear about all of these assets. Like the largest lab is crazy alone because it has a large group of top PhDs and experts from around the world, people who just go there to conduct research and advance breakthrough technologies. So the fact that all these 3 organizations came together to launch a Techstars is a huge, huge deal. There's a lot of potential in that region to be a leader in deep tech and to attract more and more startups because of the assets that they have. So I'm really ecstatic about this Techstars program. I'm working with some really cool companies, a lot of scientists and technologists. Like I said, a lot of these people will change the world. So I'm excited to help them on their journey as entrepreneurs.
Excellent. So I love and in this being the first Techstars focus on industries of the future and this deep tech, what are you all doing differently to support these entrepreneurs that it typically takes more money, more capital, more time, a deeper expertise? So what are you guys doing differently as you're beginning to launch next year?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really important because it is totally different. And something I learned as an entrepreneur, bringing a blockchain solution to market, it was a novel technology. We were building something that nobody had built before and nobody was using in the financial market, and trying to persuade people of technology that they don't understand, trying to really showcase the value proposition, trying to educate people on that and change industries is really freaking hard. And it does take a lot of money, especially when we're talking about like carbon capture technology or hydrogen. Like these things are insanely costly. So you need deep pockets. You need investors with that risk appetite, who understand it costs a lot of money, but they also understand it's going to take much longer to get to market, to grow, to scale, and to generate revenue. So the way we're designing the program, Techstars operates the same way, right? Like it's a 3-month program. We invest the same amount in every particular vertical. But what's interesting about Techstars is it's a very decentralized company. So each program, there's a Techstars LA, a Techstars Chicago, a Techstars Barclays. Each program operates kind of like a startup. So I have a team, and in my team, we all figure out, how are we building up this ecosystem? And it's what I call a deep tech machine. I want to find the executives at all the top industry players that my companies need access to: Boeing, Lockheed Martin, LG, Amazon, like you name it. Then we also want to find the best, the biggest deep tech investors, angels and VCs who have that risk appetite, who want to take that risk on these types of companies and are willing to work with them and develop these relationships. And then we pair it with programming. So programming for these companies is different for programming for consumer facing apps. A lot of the teams that I've mentioned are scientists who have been working in a lab. They've been wearing a science technology hat and now they're putting on a business hat. So a basic thing of, how do I pitch and tell the story? What is the value proposition of my quantum computing B2G technology? Like, how do I truly sell that to my customers is difficult, as well as how do you build out your supply chain? We're building and scaling a hard tech solution, and we have to start thinking about how we're moving operations globally, and the costs for those units, as well as financing. So a lot of these entrepreneurs, as first-time entrepreneurs, don't really know what a cap table is, how to speak to investors, how to, what I call, play the VC game, constantly think about FOMO and, keep them updated and excited. Like these are all the things that we're trying to surround them with in designing a program specifically for deep tech founders.
Amazing. And so what's your opinion also, and I would say different academic institutions even have been focused on trying to expedite deep tech for a long time. I would say Stanford and MIT are probably most prolific in doing it. But there are different models, right? Of like taking the technologists and, as you said, prepping them with those business skills to pitch, or finding the technologists and finding them a counterpart. What do you think is a best of class approach as you're trying to accelerate many different technologies that are changing the world through a program like this?
So that's a really interesting question, because it's something that I was looking a lot at while at the Department of Energy, right? We have 17 national laboratories with the most advanced technology sitting on the shelves. A lot of labs, research institutions, universities, they're motivated to release papers, right? Like they are pushing out research. They're not necessarily incentivized to go sell and commercialize technology. And so while at DOE, I got to work with the chief commercialization officer in the Office of Tech Transition, Vanessa Chan. And so she was focused a lot on like, how do we drive commercialization? As a country, at the Department of Energy, we need to be focused on commercialization because we invest billions of dollars in R&D, but then it stops at the R&D. Like we don't invest billions in commercialization. So if we want to be competitive as a country, but if we also want to address some of the biggest problems we're up against, we have to start moving that R&D to the commercialization phase. And so there are a lot of different models we can look at because, you know, a lot of people say it's hard to turn a scientist into an entrepreneur, right? Like that's like, in my mind, like a unicorn, a truly brilliant scientist who is a truly brilliant founder and CEO. It's unlikely that you're going to find that whole thing in one package. But if you have this great scientist, you can find a great CEO. It's much easier to find the CEO versus the technologist or scientist. And so what I really focused on for our program was tapping into the MITs, Stanfords, Harvards, all these great schools and the labs who have, you know, these students and researchers who are advancing technologies, but they do want more hands-on support. And with Techstars, they want access to investors. They want access to this broad commercial network so that they can figure out, now I'm ready to commercialize this technology. How do I actually get it to market and scale it?
Excellent. I do want to dive deeper in here, but don't want the audience to miss out on you and your story and how unique it is. So I want to back up a little bit. Your background in public policy, now, you know, managing director of the industries of the, you know, future focus Techstars Accelerator. But I would say maybe not the first, but you were previously founder of Walla, a blockchain startup in financial services. How did a public policy grad go from starting a blockchain financial services startup in Cape Town, South Africa? Can you share a little bit of that journey with us?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a strange journey, I guess. But I would say, so like the way I define myself is an impact entrepreneur. So while I'm now with Techstars sitting technically in the investor seat, I am through and through a founder. I'm a builder. I love looking at problems and figuring out how do we build scalable solutions for those, and mainly how do we use technology to solve really big problems that impact people and the world. So I ended up going into public policy because it is essentially a deep dive into big problems. So I wanted to get the skills of figuring out how to analyze complex problems. Studying econometrics at the University of Chicago was a good way for me to analyze the data, look at the macro and the micro scale of the problem. And for me, I generally always focused on poverty. I grew up in an immigrant household. So my father's from Mexico, and I got to travel back and forth frequently growing up, and, you know, seeing the disparities that exist and the privilege that I had growing up in the US and not in Mexico was always difficult for me. I didn't think it was fair that I got so lucky. So it just kind of, for me at a young age, I always wanted to solve problems and help people. And to me, the root of the problem of poverty is always money. If you don't have financial literacy or access to financial services, you can't invest in your education, you can't invest in your healthcare, you can't invest in your kids, your community. It is, you know, generally the root of the problem. And so I studied poverty alleviation interventions while in graduate school, focused a lot on microfinance. And in grad school, I started taking a lot of classes at the business school. And that's when I discovered, you know, social entrepreneurship. And I was like, what the hell? You can start for-profit businesses and solve really big problems. Like, this is amazing to me. It makes sense. I don't have to be in policy because I hate government and things are so slow moving. There's so much red tape. So that's when, you know, in school, I had the startup bug and started building things while in college and grad school. And I never looked back. And so I ended up raising funds while in school from investors to go out to, of all places, Uganda, to give away cash. So poverty, one of the most, acclaimed poverty alleviation interventions are unconditional cash transfers. So the idea of giving cash to people because they know how to spend money better than we do. The idea that if I go build a clinic in sub-Saharan Africa or provide food to people in extreme poverty, it would be much more effective if we just gave cash to people because they know how to invest in their lives. We don't know how to. So I raised, some, like, I don't even know, what was it, like $25,000, went to sub-Saharan Africa, worked with 100 subsistence farmers on the border of Sudan and Uganda. And it was the most life-changing experience. It gave cash away and it was extremely impactful. They invested in their homes, their farms, their children's education. But the biggest problem that we had was literally the movement of money. We had to give them bags of cash and it wasn't feasible at all, as you all can imagine. And even the fact that mobile money is prolific in sub-Saharan Africa, it is extremely, extremely costly. It's so cost prohibitive that it actually disincentivizes consumers to want to use the financial system, which is why cash is king in all of these markets. So that's when I started thinking about the financial infrastructure or lack thereof in these markets. And that's when Walla was essentially born. So we started working with banks. And the idea was that we would be the digital bank of Africa, this front end user experience, acquiring customers on behalf of the banks in these markets at no cost to the consumer. But we spent about 3 years banging our heads against the walls trying to work with banks. As many of you might know, working with really large corporations is extremely difficult, especially when they don't see true value in the end consumer or understand the end consumer. And that's when we looked to blockchain. We said there has to be a way to service our users, because at this time we had over 1 million people sign up into these Facebook communities we had created, which was crazy. And so we issued a cryptocurrency, we launched our platform, and in a few months we grew to a few 100,000 users. It was insane. Like the amount of people, like people were using our platform to send money, to pay for their utilities, to buy mobile minutes and data. And this was right around the crypto winter. So it's during the bubble of ICOs and we were trying to fundraise and it was such a struggle because we hit the market at the point of fundraising at a really bad time. And we ended up having to shut down because we couldn't convince American investors that financial inclusion, crypto, and poverty were good investments. Now, fast forward, that's like some of the hottest markets. So as an entrepreneur, it really is about time, right? Timing and luck. That's just generally how it works out. So we still have Walla open. We're not operating, but we're working with some groups about potentially moving it to other markets, which is interesting and exciting. So we'll see where that goes. But I from there decided I wanted to figure out what were my next steps as an entrepreneur. So I joined the federal government as a presidential innovation fellow. And that's essentially this fellowship that brings in technologists and entrepreneurs to the federal government to help truly innovate various agencies. So I was detailed to the Department of Energy's AI and Technology Office. I got to invest all my time in thinking about artificial intelligence, climate change, how the national labs can drive more commercialization around these technologies. And it ended up happening that the national lab, the biggest one, was working in partnership with Techstars. I had gone through a Techstars program with Walla, and the stars aligned, and now I'm back here.
Amazing. And I do want to take a step back and talk a little bit about what is a hot topic now. We talk about cryptocurrencies and enabling more people, the bank unbanked, to participate in our economic ecosystem. And can you share a little bit more about that? I mean, I'll share something short. For me, I was definitely skeptical in the US, right? Everybody's like, oh, like why would we use Bitcoin or whatever currency as a form of payment? But we're in the privilege of a very stable ecosystem with a stable currency. And then it was a entrepreneur I met that came from Nigeria, and he talked about, oh, I get paid in Bitcoin and I transfer it into Naira because it's actually easier than using easier and less expensive than using the current banking system he had. And I was blown away by it's a real, real use case. He wasn't talking about appreciation or investment. He was just like, I can get paid cross border pretty easily. Any thoughts, like what, like it is, I mean, obviously you've built an institution, so there's some bias there, but to what would you say to the skeptics that say, hey, this is just the hype of now, and it's all going to fall apart? Like what are the anecdotes you can share from your exposure and experience in Africa?
Absolutely. So, I tell people this a lot. So there's two parts of crypto, if we want to talk about crypto. One is, it is an investment vehicle for a lot of us in the US, or actually around the whole world. People are looking at it as an investment vehicle, and that's a good thing. My husband and I personally invest in the bigger coins, right? Like, we're very bullish on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we believe that they're here for the long haul. Will I ever use it as a form of currency? Never. I don't need to, because the dollar is so strong and because my banking systems work pretty well. But in markets where you can't trust your government, where inflation and devaluation of your currency exists on a daily basis, look at Zimbabwe, look at Venezuela, look at Lebanon. These were markets. My husband's from Lebanon. We operated in Zimbabwe. Like, these were daily problems and things that actually destroy livelihoods. And so people are eager to figure out, how do I get my money out of this country? How do I hold it in some form of asset that can appreciate, or at least hold its value on a day-to-day basis? That's why cryptocurrency is so important. For a lot of consumers, it has the potential to just give them a more stable day-to-day life that they deserve. So that's, for me, crypto is this beacon of light that can solve a lot of problems in the financial markets that are struggling with that. So it does not have to be an investment vehicle. It can be an alternative asset to be used as a true store of value and a currency. And the values of the technology are there, right? Like, there are a number of blockchains that provide a number of values. And we looked at it as a way to provide services on different blockchains. Ethereum can be used for lending because of the smart contract capabilities. Stellar can be used for payments because it's really low cost and extremely fast to move money on it. There are so many various things that you can do with different blockchains. And that's why I tell people, like, if friends are asking me, how do I invest in crypto? You shouldn't be investing in these altcoins unless you know that they have a big network and a team, right? Like, there are so many developers building on top of Ethereum, which is a really good thing. It means there's a huge network effect and smart driven people who want to build with it. But when you're looking at things like Dogecoin that were essentially built as a joke, you need to be careful when you're investing in something that is essentially a joke. So, I mean, pros and cons to all of it. I don't like that it's created this hype. And to be honest, I really hated being a crypto company because there are some really mean people in the space, right? Like, being on crypto Twitter is the worst thing in the world. Like, I wanted nothing to do with it. All we wanted to do was be heads down and to build something for our customers who are so eager and hungry for an alternative currency solution.
Excellent. Yeah, just the technology that's enabling us to create something new to better serve consumers. So
absolutely,
that's a great insight. And in shifting and speaking back about industries of the future, can you talk about the different verticals that you're focused on? You talked about quantum, which seems so far away. You talk about clean tech, even biotech with the longer horizons. Are you doing anything specifically different for these different types of innovations, or are they all going through together? Like, how are you approaching best supporting them?
Yeah, so for my investment thesis for this first year, I wanted to focus on the areas in which the partners have a lot of expertise. And to be honest, I had no idea. I didn't want to narrow it down too much because I just didn't really know what the market looked like in terms of how active startups were across all these industries. What mattered to me was finding companies that really have the potential to change the world. And that may sound corny, but I think there's just the problems that are ahead of us are truly terrifying. And technology has the potential to address a lot of those problems. And with the support of the National Lab and TVA and UT, like great things can happen when startups work alongside those institutions. So focusing on the areas that they had expertise in was important to me. And I would say so the areas we're looking at are artificial intelligence, clean tech, quantum, advanced manufacturing. Sorry, my dog's making noise in the background. Advanced manufacturing and robotics, biotech, and 5G IoT. I ended up seeing a lot of AI companies, which I'm excited about because I did a lot of work in the AI space, especially at the federal government, and I'm just passionate about that field in general. And clean tech was really fascinating because of the potential with Tennessee Valley Authority. A lot of companies want to have the potential to do proof of concepts with them. I would also say like advanced materials, thinking about removing plastics or redesigning plastics and the things that go in the environment. The National Lab's an expert in a lot of those areas. Like you said, quantum is very far off in the future, but it almost isn't. And we have to prepare for these things, and communications and cybersecurity go alongside that. So all of these areas kind of are alignment with the federal government, the Department of Energy, their visions and missions. And so in looking at these companies, again, like I said, I didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into anything. I wanted to keep it open and see what was out there. So the way we've been, and I haven't finalized the portfolio, we're still in due diligence. We will have 10 companies coming to Tennessee at the end of February, but we're nearly done finalizing on those companies. And so every company, my goal is I'm making sure that I have subject matter experts. I can connect them with industry or government customers, and top mentors, whether that's, technologists that can help them, marketing experts, finance experts, whatever the case is. So making all those connections for each portfolio company is what I'm really focused on right now.
Excellent. And in your mind, what can we do? And maybe not, since you were able to be at the Department of Energy, the DOE, thinking about kind of the macro, not just for Techstars, but what can we do to better accelerate these deep tech innovations? You mentioned one, which is funding the commercialization stage, but what are other things that we can do? We have these deep technologists. How do we better, whether say pair them with CEOs to accelerate their launch, or what are that's just one area, but what are other concepts in your mind that can help accelerate technology in all of these areas?
I think that we really need to nurture. What I've seen more and more is that deep tech is just, I would say it's like 10 times harder than, when we're looking at like consumer B2C apps, right? Like you can build a prototype, get users on less than $100,000 and iterate. Like you can do so many things with a small amount of money. But in the deep tech world, it costs so much money and so much time. And so we have to be cognizant of the time and the money, right? Like in my mind, failure is a good thing. Like I like the Breakthrough Energy, Bill Gates's groups, his approach. Like they are throwing obscene amounts of money at everything. And at the end of the day, 99% of it's going to fail. But all those failures are really important, because when we're talking about climate change, we need to figure out what will work and what will not. And what is not going to work is actually teaching us what's going to work the next round. So in my mind, throwing money at as many companies as we can at the early stages and surrounding them with this nurturing support is really, really important. Just because a lot of these deep tech companies, like I've said, are led by scientists. And so they need that business guidance, mentorship, which is what's so nice about Techstars, because we are very much mentor driven. That's our entire model. And what I learned as an entrepreneur is every relationship matters. Like your job as a founder is to foster relationships, because any person can open up any door and you have no idea who. But it's just so important to put yourself out there, to tell your story and to get people excited. And when you get people excited, doors open. So what I really believe we need to do is we need to be throwing more money. And it's nice to see that there is a lot of money in the ecosystem right now, and more funds. Like we have so many more clean tech funds that have developed in the last few years, which is extremely exciting. I think we'll end up seeing the results of that in the coming years. Like it'll be interesting to see how many companies have survived after that. But I do think that we need more acceleration programs. We need more Techstars programs, and ones that are deep tech focused, that provide more funding, that provide longer term relationships, and can then connect those founders and companies to the customers they need. And that's what's been exciting about our partners. We need more industry to step up and say, we will start piloting with these young companies. And at the end of the day, a lot of the deep tech companies will end up exiting to large industry. They may not go public and building a new battery, but a Lockheed and Martin might want to acquire their technology. So more industry needs to step up, more money needs to be thrown out there, and more support and nurturing through acceleration programs.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Tricia, what's next for Techstars Industries of the Future?
So we are going live with 10 companies end of February. So our program runs February through May. It will be in Knoxville, Tennessee. I really want people to start looking at Tennessee as a new innovation hub. Like, I know that might sound crazy, and we're still like 5-10 years out from that. But as someone who definitely overlooked Tennessee, I am now seeing the great assets that it has. And it is obviously because of the National Lab, Tennessee Valley Authority, and the University of Tennessee. But we have the potential to build something great there, and to build a deep tech ecosystem with industry and government that really wants to support startups. So for me, it's about building up this ecosystem, attracting more and more companies to that area so they can work with the National Lab, with TVA and with UT. And so, yeah, our program's February to May. We will have demo day May 26th. I will be then looking for another round of 10 companies. If anyone's interested, reach out. I'm always eager to work and meet anyone who has an idea. It doesn't matter how early you are, how late you are, or if you just want to connect and say hi.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. This was RBL1 Live. Thanks again, Tricia, for joining us tonight. This was Tricia Martinez, Managing Director of Techstars Industries of the Future, based out of Knoxville. So thanks again, Tricia.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.